What did you think of the 80s music scene in general?
I was interested in what was going on. I mean, you've got to remember we came out of the punk thing, which was, though none of us really understood it, would have sort of quite far-reaching social consequences. And what it was a bunch of kids in the mid-70s who were offered no future whatsoever. We started in 75. 6 months later in London, we were in Dublin. It's the Pistols, the Clash, the Stranglers, Elvis Costello in New York. It's the Ramones, the Talking Heads, and it all came to a head in 76. And our first gigs were with the Ramones and Talking Heads at schools in the afternoon at 4:30 in gymnasiums. And
That's what used to happen in the 70s.
Yeah, and all these kids were with their flares and Bay City Rollers jackets and mullets, staring at, like, what they couldn't get their heads around with the Talking Heads with their short hair and Lacoste, or polo shirts. And they were, when my love stands next to you, they were like, what? But the Ramones came on and and everyone, So, and this sort of prefaced a change, like in the political stuff, I mean, England was running into a brick wall economically, but nobody expected, they were demanding change, all these bands. Nobody expected it to come from the right, for it to be a woman. Nobody expected her to use her handbag to, like, attack every institution. So, really Margaret Thatcher was Johnny Rotten in drag, and so this kind of this whole notion of tearing up your clothes or wearing safety pins in your face and stuff completely, it was sort of like the economy, like the country itself. It was held together with safety pins just about, and it was dressed down and be unstarry. That was nonsense,
But then we got to the puffy shirts again.
Exactly, because rock and roll had got to the point where it was only about how big was your mansion house, how long your limo, how high your bouffant, your platform heels. Suddenly the punk said, forget that. Yeah. That's not what it's about. It's about reality. And then when reality changed, then you got a change in rock and roll as well. So you got kids saying, no, even if things are crap, I'm great. I'm going to be beautiful and glamorous. You went back almost to the mods of the 60s, where boys used to just do their hair in front of mirrors. I mean, Ronnie Wood used to do Rod Stewart's hair in front of a mirror for hours, and stuff like that. And so it goes back to that with the New Romantics. And I remember feeling that happen in a club called... it was called Brown's was the name, but they called it something else. And the guy, the doorman, was subsequently Boy George and Steve Strange. And I bought a suit from a shop called FX for when Rat Trap went to #1 in the UK, and we were doing Top of the Pops, which is the big rock and roll TV show. And I bought a suit in '78 from Steve Strange, and it was sort of like this blue thing with red piping down it, and
Very
I thought,
spiffy.
this is cool, and this thing is coming, and this crowd of kids down in this club, they've got something going. And what it was very influenced by Bowie. So you saw it coming with Ultravox, you saw it coming with Joy Division. U2 were basically an electro band at that time in Dublin. Crap. But no matter what Bono says, they weren't punks. They entered Limerick, which is a horrible place. Sorry to everyone who comes from Limerick. They won a talent competition, in Limerick. Let's face it. But they were touching this thing. They were getting close to this thing, and the Police were happening, and they were glamorous boys who were latching onto this thing that was fading, the punk thing. Simultaneous to that, you had the whole ska thing, going on with the Specials and with Madness, which was fantastic music. So you had this whole change going on. Duran Duran, I guess, Spandau Ballet. I mean, personally, I like that stuff a lot, and we were friends of them because my missus Paula was doing this rock and roll show in the north of England called The Tube, and these kids were doing this thing, and so they were very enthusiastic, and they used to come to our house on the weekends and stay the weekend and just fall asleep on the floor because they were exhausted, just from, because when you're going, you have to keep going. And so I got to know them very well, and I liked their records. I thought they were really cool and interesting. I mean, bands make it for a reason. That's the truth. It's never an accident. The hype stuff, they go. The pop stuff disappears. But when there really was an idea in some young kid's head about how things should be. Usually
And that's the
that
thing
will
out of
stay
a
around.
kid's head. That's the amazing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the
that these
amazing
bands
thing. But the
started.
point is, Fred, I've been banging on about this for a while. I unfortunately think the rock and roll age is over, where it was central to the culture, where it said things that were necessary to be said and moved the agenda forward. I don't think people consciously did that, but if you were a kid growing up in certain conditions and you thought, you looked around, it wasn't cool, somehow it translated into the sense of the music.
Yeah.
And that sense, listening on the radio, going into work, you kind of go, yeah, whatever, that's great.
Okay.
Why it's great is
Why
because
not?
it feels like being alive at that moment today.